Bet you didn't think you'd be seeing me again. Hello, my weird and wonderful human beings, and welcome back. And if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Eve Daniels, and I am an author and grad student studying experimental and medical biosciences at Linköping University in Sweden. Man, does it feel weird to say that again. Nice, but weird. I have not been on the YouTube space for almost 6 months for a variety of reasons, and we will get into that at some point, but for right now, we need to back it up a few steps. Almost 2 years ago now, I got on a plane and flew a quarter of the way around the world from sunny South Florida to South Central Sweden for grad school. It was a whole thing, and as stressful and terrifying as it most definitely was, it was also 100% worth it. Now, I have always been an absolutely massive nerd.
Science rules.
So really, it wasn't all that surprising when I went off to college, I wanted to study biochemistry. And I did, to varying degrees of success.
Failure is always an option.
Now there's this idealized notion that a lot of us have of going off to college and somehow managing to perfectly balance working and academics and developing a social life, and also learning how to take care of ourselves as fully functional adult-type human beings on our own for the first time. To say it's a lot would be an understatement, and to say that I handled it well would be a lie. I struggled a lot my first year of college. It was my first time away from home. We had family things going on. I was that naive little freshman that said, of course I can manage 18 credits while working 30 hours a week. Why wouldn't I be able to do that? I don't need to sleep.
What, like it's hard?
Yeah. So when the global financial markets came crashing down around my head, and a lot of my classmates were able to find a way to keep going with their studies, I didn't. Like a lot of people during that time period, I moved back home to live with my parents. I dropped out of college in the fall term, only to start taking part-time courses at the local community college the next spring. I worked in the bakery department of the local grocery store, and I picked up nanny and tutoring jobs on the side to help pay the bills. I was regularly working 40 to 50 hours a week on top of courses, and somehow expecting to get it all done. And unsurprisingly, when you try to jam that much onto your plate, it got hard. I got sick all the time, I kept crashing and burning, and in the hustle culture of the early 2000s and before the term self-care had arrived on Instagram, I just thought it meant that I wasn't good enough. Now, I don't regret that time at all. Yes, I worked a lot, and looking back, I probably could have prioritized sleep a little more, but I also did some pretty amazing things. By the time I graduated, I had kind of figured out the whole work-life balance thing, or at least I wasn't constantly getting sick anymore from burning myself out. I had made some amazing friends, and I had lost some along the way. I had changed jobs and careers, and I was spending more time tutoring and nannying, and eventually writing kids' books than I was at the grocery store bakery. But I still really wanted to do science. I got a bachelor's degree in supervision and management in the healthcare industry, which on the one hand provided me with a really interesting and diverse background in a lot of different business areas, things that I found fascinating, but hadn't given a lot of thought to before. And on the other hand, proof that I never wanted to work anywhere near the American healthcare system. So an important thing to note about me is that despite being born in the US and having grown up my entire life in sunny South Florida, I am what you would call Swede-ish. My father was born in a small town called Motala. He grew up in Jönköping, got his degree at Uppsala Universitet, both of which are in Sweden. In case you're not getting to the point, my dad's Swedish. And because of the quite glorious way in which Swedish citizenship works, that meant I was a Swedish citizen. Weirdly enough, I actually spent 3 years working at a Scandinavian bakery in South Florida, so despite not being able to speak Swedish to save my life, I can make pälsstycket from scratch. Not long after I graduated high school, my dad ended up moving back to Sweden. I would try to make it a point to visit Sweden in the summers, and it was during one of those glorious summer trips that the subject of grad school came up again. Now, I had talked about grad school on and off for at least a decade in varying capacities, but grad school in the US had always been just inherently out of my reach. The price tags that go with most graduate programs in the US are somewhere between $50,000 to $100,000 a year. So grad school in the US was out of the question. And I'd never given the Swedish educational system really any thought until Dad pointed out that, again, because I have a Swedish personal number, a Swedish citizen, grad school here is free. Now, there were still some concerns about the whole lack of being able to speak Swedish, but English is the international language of science. In the summer of 2018, I talked with an academic advisor at Linköping University. There was a little bit of math involved, trying to figure out how the credit system worked between the two countries, because they are not the same. Now, applying to college in Sweden is weird. Or maybe I shouldn't say weird, but it is very different from how we go about the application process to universities in the US. If that's something of interest or that you would want me to explain or walk through, definitely make sure to let me know in the comments down below. And while you're there, subscribe, drop a like, say hi, ring the little bell notification so you'll know the next time I make a video. Hopefully it won't be 6 months before the next one. Needless to say, my application process to a Swedish university was accelerated by, again, the fact that I am a Swedish citizen. However, at this point, my trust in academia and institutions at large, and myself in general, was at an all-time low. So I didn't have a whole lot of hope going in, but the application process was free, so why not? I sent in my application in the fall of 2019. Throughout the fall of that year, I published my first kids books. I dropped my third job, so now I was only working 2, which was nice. And then, several months into the beginning of 2020, the world changed. In those first months, schools were shut down with no future timeline of reopening. Virtual school wasn't a thing yet. Shelves were empty, people were panicking, and there was a lot of fear going on. And in the middle of that, I got accepted to grad school. I spent the first several weeks trying to figure out, would there be courses? Would I be allowed to get on the plane? Were planes still running? Airlines were closing left and right at this point. Was I even going to be allowed in the country? My Swedish passport had been expired for several years at that point, and there was not a consulate open for miles. Still not knowing if there was an actual classroom that was going to be open in the fall when I got there, I got on a plane and moved halfway around the world from Florida to Sweden. I had moved almost a quarter of the way around the globe. I had left family, friends, jobs, any kind of structure or familiarity that I knew very far behind me to sit alone in a room and stare at a screen. Yeah, that didn't go well. More than once, I thought about quitting. As you can probably guess by the fact that I'm talking to you right now, I didn't drop out of grad school. I'm still here, still planning on graduating, hopefully soon. If you ask me when, I will scream and throw this phone out the window. But, hopefully soon. I'm not gonna say that things got easier because even with the lifting of restrictions, they didn't. My social support network in Sweden is extremely limited. My minuscule knowledge of the language is definitely a major stepping stone in that. So no, things didn't get easier, but even though they were really hard, they also afforded me tremendous opportunities. I learned so much from my courses and so much from my colleagues and my fellow students. I got to work in a lab for the first time in years, learn new protocols, new types of equipment. I became the in-house expert in live cell imaging purely because there was no one around to teach me, so I had to figure it out on my own. I had to troubleshoot experiments and research new reagents and protocols and figure out what was going wrong and why. And I had to do it pretty much on my own. I got to go to my first scientific conference and travel to Canada. I got a job. I made new friends and connections, and I built the support network that I had been missing. Recently, I got the chance to travel to Florida to see my mom for the first time in almost 2 years. I saw my friends. I got to visit with my nephews and my brother and my sister-in-law and check out their new place. I got to visit all my old aunts and see the faces that I had been missing. One of the questions that inevitably comes up is, when am I going to come back to Florida? Or more accurately, when am I coming home? And despite how hard the last 2 years have been, and despite everything that I had to go through to get here, for now, the answer to that question is that I already am. This is my home now. And I don't know if it'll be that way forever. But for right now, this is home. And I'd love to share it with you.